Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Week 16 mega preview presented by BetMGM. We have a great cast. We have 16 games to break down over 4 days. Let's get right to it. Let's bring in all the experts. We have RJ White, the guy who runs everything NFL, the guy who's cashed twice in the Super Contest. We have Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook from Football Game Plan. And welcome back, Katie Mox, to the show. Katie, I know your Niners are making you happy, but your picks on SportsLine are also making a lot of people happy lately. I believe it's a 15-7 run. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's been such a long time since I've been on the Early Edge. I miss that music, when the countdown is happening. It's such a fun music. And yes, I think I had my first losing week in a while this week, but looking forward to bouncing back.
Well, you'll have to excuse me because the landscapers decided to show up right at the beginning of this show. It can't be for my place. It must be for the estate next door. So let's just get right into Thursday night football. We have 3 official plays on this game. Katie, I'm coming right back to you. Rams and Saints, both teams 7-7. Rams laying 4 at home. Who do you like?
Look, I took the Giants last week, the points of the Giants last week versus the Saints. I fell for the DeVito. Not doing that this week. Well, I actually am doing that this week because I'm going to fade the Saints here. Take the Rams -4. You look at these two offenses and you say, who do I trust more? And that has to be the LA Rams, right? They're 4-1 in their last 5 games. Their only loss really came against the Ravens in overtime, and that is arguably the best team, certainly the best record in the NFL and in the AFC. Matt Stafford has been balling. He's thrown for 12 touchdown passes in the last 4 games. You look at someone like Derek Carr, he's thrown for 16 touchdown passes all year long and 7 interceptions. Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, everybody has been balling out. And yes, the Saints have won 2 in a row, but against who? The Giants and the Panthers? I don't exactly think that's something to write home about here. They're 19th in rushing offense with 103 yards allowed per game. And the Saints defense, they're good, but they're a little bit bad against the run here. So Kyron Williams, you look at him last week, 953 rushing yards, the 4th most in the NFL. He's on pace, guys, to become the Rams' first 1,000-yard rusher since Todd Gurley in 2018. So I just think that the Rams, are just doing a lot better now than the Saints are. I don't trust this offense at all, and the Rams are heating up. So I'll go ahead and lay the 4.
Emory, I'm coming to you. Do you agree or disagree?
Listen, Katie laid it out perfectly and beautifully, so follow her advice. But the big story here, most people say, hey, the landscaper came next to my apartment, my house, my home. This man, Larry, said estate. Goodness, like, oh my God, Larry, I like that. So words are, but I am laying the points with the Rams. Katie, echoed a lot of points. There's no way the Saints offense with Derek Carr can compete against this Ram defense, period. Lay these 4 points.
And RJ, are you going to make it unanimous? I'm also on the Rams, but I can't talk right now because of what's going on at my location. So RJ, are you going to make it unanimous?
My lean would certainly be that way. You talk about estate. I mean, Larry's building estates because of his great defensive prop, that he puts in on SportsLine. So follow those. I think he had both of them that I saw last week. So if you want an estate, I would follow Larry on those defense props too. But yeah, my lean, it would be to the Rams. My worry is that they're at peak value and the line seems fair. I make it 4 in my power ratings. So it just seems a little too easy for the Rams. I think this is line where it should be. New Orleans, even though they have these 2 blowout wins, they're coming off back-to-back wins. They gave up 204 rush yards to Carolina, and the Rams are now up to 8th in yards per play, can do it both throwing and running the ball. Kyron Williams looks elite. If I'm going to play this game, it's going to be the Kyron Williams over rush yard prop, 88.5. Last time I saw it today. So if you're looking to play this game and you're a little worried about the spread, I would just play Kyron Williams over rush because he hit 88 yards in each of his 4 games coming back from the IR. He's averaging something like 125 in his last 4. I just think he hits 100 pretty easily here.
And where are you going to bet on the Rams and lay the points and bet that Kyron Williams prop? It's got to be BetMGM. BetMGM has all the action you need for every sports fan. New BetMGM customers, sign up today, get a first bet offer up to $1,500. If your first bet loses, you will receive $1,500 in bonus bets with the bonus code EDGE1500. You've got to use the bonus code EDGE1500. Let's get to a couple of interesting games on the Saturday slate, starting with the Bengals and Steelers. This was Jake Browning's first game. Steelers won it 16-10. He actually didn't play badly in that game. I was looking back at the numbers. Since then, he's absolutely been on fire. RJ, set the table for us on this one.
Yeah, you know who didn't play badly in the game was the Pittsburgh offense for the first time ever. This was coming out of the Matt Canada firing. That was their 400-yard game. Outgained Cincy by nearly 200 yards, only won by 6. Should have been a bigger blowout. Pittsburgh was -2 in that game in Week 12. The last 3 weeks have been diametric opposites for these teams. 3 wins for Cincy. Talk of Browning as a top 32 quarterback. Why is he not a starter in this league? 3 bad losses for Pittsburgh, 2 against 2 and 10 teams. That's moved the line by about 8 points when considering home field advantage flip. And I think that's just too much. I think that basically is telling you Jake Browning is Joe Burrow, and you're not really taking into account these Cincy injuries that they picked up several key ones in this last game. DJ Reader out at defensive tackle. That's a big one. Should help the Steelers be able to run the ball better. Jamar Chase trending down, sprained AC joint. I don't think he plays in this game. So I think they're worse off than that Week 12 game where they can only muster 10 points against this defense. And, you look at the Pittsburgh quarterback roulette, that's a problem. I don't think you downgrade from Pickett to Rudolph that many points. Since the defense is tied for last in yards per play, they were just lit up by Nick Mullins and Ty Chandler last week. So I don't see why Mason Rudolph can't come in here, have a good offensive day. I know these guys are going to probably try to sell you on the Bengals. I think this line should be a pick 'em. I think the value here is on the Steelers. At this number, it's just too good not to tease. So this is the first leg of my teaser for this week, teasing it up to Pittsburgh +8.
And Katie, I'm coming to you because it seems like you're sort of on the other side of this one.
I am. And RJ makes obviously a lot of good points. I don't hate teasing, Pittsburgh up to +8, but I'll still go ahead and lay the 2 points with the Bengals. Jake Browning to me is like Joe Burrow 2.0, Purdy 2.0, whatever you want to call him. He's averaging 300 passing yards over the last 3 games, those 3 games that he has won. And yes, the Steelers did win the first matchup 16-10. That was their last win. They've dropped 3 in a row, and this could very well be Mike Tomlin's first losing season. As RJ hit on, no Jamar Chase. I'd be very surprised if he plays in this game. But since he does still have weapons, in Chase's absence, T. Higgins had a pair of scores on Saturday. Tyler Boyd, obviously going to be looked upon to make some bigger contributions, which is sad for me because I gave him up in fantasy. I just don't see the Steelers team figuring it out. And yes, they're going to Mason Rudolph, but we don't know exactly what we're going to get from him. So, and the Steelers defense has not looked that great as of late. They've allowed over 20 points after the first, I think their 4-game win streak, they were allowing under 20. So I'll go ahead and lay the points with Jake Browning and the Bengals.
And then we've got a late game, Bills at Chargers. I'm not backing the Chargers again after what they've done to me the past 2 weeks. Even though they have the interim coach, you expect a little bit more effort, and the market likes them because the Bills on a short week after a massive win should be a letdown spot. They think they're going to cruise in there and win. I just like this Bills offense playing in perfect conditions against a defense that doesn't have Bosa. It's basically you just have to stop Khalil Mack. And you know what they did? They didn't let Micah Parsons get 1 QB hit on Sunday for the Cowboys. So I like the Bills to score a lot. I don't know if they're going to cover because I do think the Chargers could get involved late with some offense. Emory, I see you shaking your head.
Oh, that was for another reason, but I like the under here. I feel like we'll get that post-firing head coach bounce from the Chargers. They'll be motivated. They'll be inspired. Bills struggled a little bit. The Chargers do have personnel that matches up well against that Bills offense. So this could be a competitive game. I like the Bills to cover, but I also like the under more so than anything.
RJ, were you surprised that we saw so much Chargers action when this got to 13.5?
I am not, because the look ahead was around 9.5. And so you're already reopening it because this great Bills run 4 points higher. That's obviously was too high for the market. I think it's worth an upgrade here. Actually would make the line around 12.5. So I'm interested to see that it keeps coming down now. It's all the way down to 11, 10.5 at some sites. I think at that point you start to look at the Bills. Hopefully you can get a 10 before you play the Bills. But I agree with Emory here on the under. The market is also pushing this total up. It was 42.5 earlier. It's 44 now. I think the Bills can name their score against this awful defense, but it could be a letdown spot. I don't know if they're going to be up for it after this run of Philly, KC, Dallas, Dallas, where they're up for it every game. So they need to kind of recharge, get ready for the last couple games here. They do need to gain one game on Miami in the next 2 weeks to be live for the division. The schedule does line up well for them to do that. But their defense more vulnerable versus the run, but the Chargers offense 27th in yards per rush. I just can't expect the Chargers to score many points here. Spread was a little too high to play. Like I said, if it gets a little bit lower, you start to look at the Bills, but I could see them running with the lead, having another 8 completion day for Josh Allen or whatever he had last week, and just winning a very easy 24-13 type of game.
And the Bills, even though everyone is on them and thinks they're a Super Bowl sleeper, they're not in the playoffs as we stand, if the playoffs started today. So they got some work to do. We've got more work to do, and we're going to attack the Sunday slate after we hear from one of our sponsors.
The Scudetto, where the soul of Italy meets the pinnacle of calcio. Catch Serie A on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
Well, Arthur Smith came out and changed quarterbacks yet again, benching Desmond Ridder for Taylor Heineke. And the reason that I think it's a bad move, Emory, I'm going to come to you on this game because I know you have an official play, is Desmond Ridder is good at home. He's 6-2 at home. He's 2-6 on the road. He just threw one of the worst interceptions you'll ever see, straight to Xavier Woods. Panthers get the ball, drive it all the way down, get that big win. Now the Falcons come home. They make the move to Taylor Heineke, and the market liked it. Falcons went from 2-point dogs to 1-point favorites. Which side are you on?
It's funny, as if people hadn't seen Taylor Heineke play before, especially this season. Like they lost this. I don't get it, but it's a panic move, and head coaches should become head coaches, not try to take their job as a coordinator and still be a head coach. No, that's what the problem is right now with Atlanta. Arthur Smith still wants to be an OC, but just under the umbrella of a head coach, and he's panicking right now like OCs do when they get backed in the down the distance, and this is why this line changed. The Colts are a well-structured, well-oiled machine. They show you what coaching looks like. Multiple starters at running back. Multiple times we've seen quarterbacks. Different people have been in and out of the lineup, but the consistency of how they execute has been the same. I like the Colts here to win big.
RJ, what's your side on this one?
Yeah, I'm a little angry with myself of not putting the Falcons in as a play on Monday. I did like them. I thought the line should be Falcons as a short favorite, so I thought we were getting good value there, but just didn't get to it in time. And then that news dropped this week. I also wanted to see a little bit about what the Falcons would do up front because they've had a lot of defensive line injuries, and would like to see them get a little healthier. But now that the lines move, I think it's about where it should be. Indy has an average offense now that Pittman's in concussion protocol. They have questions at running back. We don't know if Zach Moss will play. We don't know if Jonathan Taylor will be back. I know the guys that subbed in this past week did a good job, but still, if that Indy offense is down Pittman and down to their third string running backs, I don't know they're going to score a ton of points here. The Atlanta defense, 7th in yards per play, 3rd on 3rd down, and 2nd in the red zone. Very good situationally. If they are healthier on the D-line, I think they win this game. Their offense had 415 yards per game in the last 6 at home and 266 yards per game in 7 on the road. This is the spot where you want to be in Atlanta. The problem is Indy's defense also can create big plays, top 5 in both sack rate and interception rate. And if they do create big plays, this one could be close. It could be one of those. Never know what happens with the Colts. They can win or lose every game by 20. So I'm probably going to stay away now that the line is about where I think it should be.
You know, the whole world was on the Titans this week, and we know what happened. Mike Vrabel said, we don't need to score any points. We'll just win this game 13-0, 13-3. It all fell apart thanks to some questionable calls. And then we saw Will Levis get hurt. I think the whole world is going to be on the Seahawks this week, coming off that riveting win, that big drive from Drew Lock, regardless of which quarterback plays. I think the whole world wants to take the Seahawks, whether it's going to be Levis coming back from the ankle, Willis, Tannehill. We don't know yet. RJ, are you going to be on the Seahawks?
Yeah, and I think you want to be on them early. So if you're going to play it, I play the Seahawks early because this should get to 3 at some point. The schedule is finally lightening up for the Seahawks. They played the Rams, 49ers, Cowboys, 49ers again, and Eagles. And they just, did not look like a great team during that stretch. Finally got it together against the Eagles this past Monday. I think their defense, which actually did play really well, they stepped up without Jamal Adams and Devon Witherspoon. I think they play better down the stretch here. They gave Hurts his worst passing game of the year. Whoever's at quarterback for the Titans is going to struggle here. Their offense looked awful after the opening drive. Just 121 yards on 10 drives. And that's at home against a bad Houston pass defense. They were doing that. Bad Houston pass defense that also, I believe, is down Tavier Thomas for the season there. The Tier Tart loss, the cutting him and him not wanting to play, it's a big loss for Tennessee's rush defense. They've been pretty banged up front anyway. And you saw without him, they just got rolled over by Devin Singletary. I think Seattle can go into this game, lean on the run, not ask whoever's at quarterback to do that much. And they'll show up. I mean, they're in win or go home mode for the rest of the season now, knowing they have to keep winning to get back into the playoff picture here. And Tennessee, we haven't really been used to seeing them out of the playoff race under Vrabel. They're typically either in the playoffs or alive until the very end. So it'll be interesting to see how this team responds now that it has nothing to play for. Do they show up? I mean, the Tart transaction makes me think maybe there's a little bit of grumbling and already people like looking forward to next season. So I think if you're going to play it, I like Seattle. I would make it 3. And like I said, play Seattle now, because once it gets to 3, I'm not that interested in them.
Emory, do you buy into that Seattle changed its entire season, is now going to make a run to the playoffs?
Absolutely. And on the other side, you have no real identity for Tennessee, and teams have figured this out this season. If we just beat Derrick Henry to the spot, we could stop him in the backfield. There's no threat vertically, from in their passing game outside of maybe DeAndre Hopkins, offensive pass interferencing the defensive backs that don't get called. There's really no course of action for their passing attack. So this offense is disjointed. Now they're banged up. Seattle's coming off an emotional win. They have better pieces, and where they're strong is where Tennessee is struggling right now in the secondary. I can see Drew Lock and or Geno Smith having a field day throwing the football. So I like the Seahawks here.
This next game has me hating myself, and I'm talking about the Vikings hosting the Lions. I was so late on this. I wanted the Vikings getting over a field goal. I mean, you look at their games, all of their losses have been very tight. That defense, except for late against the Bengals, has been rock solid. And Jared Goff against the blitz is not going to be Jared Goff against what we saw, a Denver defense that was a little bit fraudulent at home. And now they have to go on the road. I wish I could have gotten 3.5 with Nick Mullins. RJ, would you still take a field goal with Nick Mullins?
I think the field goal is the right number. So it's tough to take either side there. Detroit's offense back on track with a huge game versus a bad Denver defense. The Detroit defense allowed less than 26 points for the first time since their week 9 bye. They finally showed up. We were waiting for this game for a long time, considering the talent they have there. Minnesota's offense looked good with Mullins at quarterback, but that was an easy matchup for them to exploit. So we'll see if Detroit's defense continues to play well or if Mullins continues to play well. I think the pass offense can have success with Mullins. I don't trust Detroit's defense on the road. Minnesota's defense also 4th in yards per rush. The key here will be getting pressure on Goff with Brian Flores sending that pressure like he likes to do, so they are not just picked apart by the passing game here, because that could happen in this game too with St. Brown and Laporta. So my power ratings make it right at 3. If I'm going to play this game, it's probably going to be the over if I think that the Lions can hold off this Vikings defense. I think there's going to be some points scored here, and this can get over 50.
And Emory, are you looking for points here? Are you looking for an over?
I'm looking at the Lions winning big because Nick Mullins is another one that tends to turn the ball over at the worst possible time. So ladies, points with Detroit. I feel like what we saw versus Cincinnati throughout the course of the game is what we'll see for the entire game. Sans that late, 4-minute rush that we saw at the end that pushed the game into overtime. Detroit now knows that they have to keep pace in order to improve their playoff standing. So I like Detroit here big.
And Katie, nobody follows the 49ers closer than you. What do you think about Nick Mullins? I mean, he put up great numbers, but he also had 2 picks inside the 25 that just can't happen.
I was just thinking this as a 49ers fan, we've had Nick Mullins. We've seen a lot of Nick Mullins. And when I was watching the game, and I'd even tweeted out, like, Vikings fans and maybe people who aren't as familiar are getting the full Nick Mullins experience here. He has some incredible plays. And like you said, over 300 passing yards, but 2 really bad decisions, 2 really bad turnovers, and 1 that cost him the game. So Nick Mullins is not one of those backup quarterbacks I think that you can actually trust. The Lions seem to have got their stuff together. They're using their 2-headed monster with their 2 running backs better. That finally, I feel like all season long, we've been waiting for them to do that. And, the defense was a little bit less of a pass funnel. So I would lean laying the 3 points with the Lions, because they're in a position too where they got to start turning things on coming into the later half of the season.
We have never skipped a game on this show before, but this one is a candidate. When you talk about the Commanders visiting the Jets, they are going back to Sam Howell. Very curious why you pull a young quarterback if the whole point is to get him experience. And then on the Jets side, it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. Zach Wilson still in the concussion protocol, so it could be Trevor Siemian. RJ, the only way I could look in this game is to lay the points with the Jets, even though that's hard to do with a team that can't score, just because the Commanders, since those trades, since like 4 or 5 straight games, have not covered, and their defense is just abysmal.
You talk about if we were going to skip a game, it should be this one. The total in this game is 37.5. It's like 7.5 points higher than the lowest total this season. I mean, there have been atrocious games this season, yet this total, which you're framing as one of the worst of the year, is at 37.5. My pick here, my best bet here is the under. It's shocking how much better Jacoby Brissett looked than Sam Howell, considering Sam Howell's gotten all the run with the ones in practices. He should have all this, be able to hit Terry McLaurin whenever he wants, and it took Brissett getting in there to get McLaurin to get going. So I can't trust him to score points now that he's playing this game at the Jets, one of the best defenses in the league, especially at home. If Wilson's out with a concussion, I can't really trust the Jets to score points, even against the 32nd ranked pass defense. The Jets offense has multiple offensive touchdowns in just 2 games all year. And Washington has allowed multiple touchdowns in 13 straight. So, something's got to give on that sense. And I think it might be the Jets offense if Trevor Siemian's at quarterback. Jets are by far the best unit in the game on defense. They can dictate what happens here. Washington has thrown 4 pick sixes here. I think the play on -3 is interesting. That's probably where I put the line. Maybe lean to the Jets here, but I mean, even if the Jets offense can score points in this bad Washington defense, I don't see how Washington does their part to help push this over. So like this when it was 38, I would still play it as best bet under 37.5. This line should probably be at least 2 points lower to me.
RJ, I'm going to come right back to you because we have another game where you are going under. This is the Packers visiting the Panthers, must-win game for Green Bay. The Panthers now 2-1 against the spread under their interim coach, the exception being, the debacle in New Orleans, which was their 3rd straight road game. I would look at the points here if the Packers still have a lot of those key guys out, namely Christian Watson. But RJ, you're going for the total.
Taking the under here. Panthers unders have been almost a lock for recently. They just do not score a ton of points in games. The one that wasn't a lock, they got that garbage touchdown in the Tampa Bay game, and were able to get a 2-point conversion on top of that. We're able to cover in that game, but I think the total there was a little bit lower than 39, and that's where that game ended. Green Bay was let down by their defense against Tampa Bay. That's not going to be the case this week because Carolina's offense cannot score. They cannot move the ball. They're 32nd in yards per play. Their offense has 200-plus net passing yards in just one of Bryce Young's 13 starts. 200 net passing yards should be the baseline for any NFL offense, and they just cannot get there. They have 6 offensive touchdowns since the Week 7 bye. They're not going to score points in this game. They don't score points in any game. Carolina's defense, though, continues to shine. I harp them every week. They are now 8th in yards per play. They've given up 253 yards per game since that Week 7 bye. That is a very low number. 261 leads the league. That's what the Browns give up a game, on average per game. They are playing better in just a yards per game number than the Browns since the bye. So their defense playing well. This line may go up if Green Bay starts getting good injury news. I would not be comfortable playing them higher than 4.5. I think that's kind of your cap on where you're playing it. But this under needs to go lower because the Panthers are just smash spot on unders lately.
Emory, what do you think about the Packers in this spot, and will they be able to turn around and save their season?
Well, I mean, this is the perfect opponent. You have a young team that's struggling, that's finding a way to win. They got their second win last weekend, and Green Bay is now in. They have to win every game, but they made themselves into put in this situation when you lose to a Giants. So now, okay, maybe that can help them out in this ball game here. They should win on paper. Defensively, they should be able to get pressure. I know 4.5 seems like a lot for this Packers team that has struggled a little bit, but I do like them to lay these points. I will go back to that Commanders-Jets game and say take the Commanders to win that one outright. I can't trust none of those quarterbacks on the Jet side, and desperation is a sticky cologne, and we see both teams desperate in what they've done with their quarterback situations, but I can trust the Commanders to win.
Emory, I was trying to cut off all Jets Commanders talk right there, but you got that in, so way to go there. But Katie, what do you think about Packers, Panthers, and the spread?
Yeah, I tend to agree and lean more with laying the points with the Packers here, 4.5. I know it seems like a lot, and the Packers have been on a little bit of skid, but, RJ kind of hit the nail on the head. The Packers defense got absolutely shredded last week. They gave up 34 points, 452 yards to Tampa Bay. That is not going to be a problem for them with Carolina. This team has virtually no offense at all. They won their second game of the season despite not finding the end zone. And by the way, this game is going to be in Carolina, where where prices to get in were about 50 cents. So there may be more Packers fans at Panther Stadium than not. And so, yeah, I tend to think that the Packers are going to bounce back here. I don't think their defense is going to have quite the problem against the Carolina Panthers.
Okay, well, how about another game that I think is very interesting when you look at the Browns and the Texans? You know, is CJ Stroud going to play? Probably. The expectation is, and the line is telling you, he's going to clear the concussion protocol against Joe Flacco, who just continues to make plays, bad plays, but then he rescues you in the fourth quarter. Why did the Bears blitz him on 3rd and 15? He finds Njoku, game-winning field goal. RJ, do you think Joe Flacco keeps up the magic?
This is probably about where the spread should be. I threw the Browns in as the second leg of my teaser, just a perfect teaser number here. Take them up to plus 8.5. Houston won on their run game and defense last week with Stroud out. Line is telling you, like you said, he'll be back this week. Noah Brown was fine as their wide receiver one in a good matchup versus Tennessee. The offense needs Nico Collins back in this matchup. If Nico Collins is out, I think then you start to look even harder at the Browns here, because I don't know that they solve this. The Texans solve this Browns pass defense with just Noah Brown as their wide receiver one here. Cleveland allowing more than 30 points per game on the road. I do like the matchup, though, if Nico Collins is out. Cleveland's offense definitely stepping up with Flacco. They have to avoid turnovers. Houston's defense allowed just 3.2 yards per play at Tennessee. They stepped up in that game. It's weird when you look at who to trust on both sides of the ball here in both units. I might trust the Cleveland passing game most in this matchup out of anything, oddly enough. So I do think they probably win the game, but the line's about where it should be. And if they need to, they can backdoor the cover on the teaser number. So worth teasing it up with the Steelers if you don't want to take Pittsburgh on the straight spread because you want to back what these guys said about Cincy. I like Pittsburgh plus 8 and Cleveland plus 8.5 as a teaser.
Yeah, the Texans absolutely shut down Derrick Henry. It was like, less than 15 yards of production from 20 carries. I mean, they just kept running it right on first down into the teeth of the line. Emory, are you impressed with that Texans defense and what they can do against the Browns?
Yeah, and it shows you that you need balance on offense. And when one side of your offensive attack isn't getting respected, teams get aggressive in that other aspect and they're able to take that away. That's what we saw last week, and that's what we'll see from both teams in this ball game, neither which I believe will respect each other's run game. So it'll have to be Flacco versus what we expect to be CJ Stroud. I also like the over here. I feel like this is a playoff game. Both teams, Browns are currently in with 9 wins, and you see the Texans right there in the hunt at 7-6, so or 8-6. For me, it's about, hey, this is a must-win game. You got to win to stay in it. I look for the Texans and Browns to end up in the shootout down there in Houston.
We're going to get to Cowboys, Dolphins, and a couple of the other late Sunday games, but first, we got to hear from one of our sponsors. Jags visiting the Buccaneers. Will Trevor Lawrence get cleared or not? RJ, how do you break down this matchup?
It's interesting. Emory said the Houston game a minute ago was a playoff game. Some of us were asked to do 1 through 7 seeds for AFC and NFC for social prior to last week, and I almost put Houston as my winner for that division over the Jags. And I played out all the games, and I said, man, I really want to take Houston here based on the tiebreakers. I think they're going to take it over Jacksonville. Did not do it. Ultimately chickened out, took Jacksonville. Now I'm wishing I did because I think Houston might win that division. Jaguars off 3 straight losses now, and Tampa Bay off 3 straight wins, and it doesn't really feel like the market's reflecting those runs by only making Tampa Bay -1 here. Jacksonville's defense is a problem. 28th in yards per play, getting rolled by any legit offense. And even though Tampa Bay's run game is bad, they're 14th in yards per pass with good receivers. Chris Godwin looked healthy last week, which was key because I don't think he had a catch the game before. He had that rushing touchdown, but no catches, or at least not until late. Jacksonville's offense barely ahead of Tampa Bay's offense in yards per play. So I think this comes down to obviously Trevor Lawrence's availability. I'm not telling anything new there. With Lawrence, I think they can throw on Tampa Bay's defense. I expect the game to go over. With no Lawrence, Tampa Bay, it should be at -3 at least. So keep an eye on that news and decide which way you want to play based on what happens there.
Emory, what has happened to the Baker Mayfield that we used to know? I mean, this guy just put up a perfect passer rating.
Oh,
Lambo.
He's still there. And it depends on who he's playing against. The thing is, he'll have some success against this Jags defense. Although they can get after the quarterback, they are much more athletic at all 3 levels than what we saw from than what he saw from Green Bay. So this game is tricky because what kind of Trevor Lawrence are we going to get? What kind of run game are we going to get? This is another game where backs are up against the wall. We saw this last week where the Jags lost, but then the Texans and the Colts also lost. They kind of kept them in that driver's seat for the AFC South. But now everyone is starting to breathe down the neck once again. This is a must-win game for both. And I feel like we'll see another situation where the total will go over. So I like that here in this matchup.
Katie, it looked to me like you wanted to chime in on Baker Mayfield.
Well, it's just so interesting. One, to have a perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field is even more impressive than just, Baker Mayfield doing that by himself. But we've really seen a maturity from Baker, I think, this year. He's not making those really risky throws that he was making in the beginning of his career. And he seems to really stand on his own more. And they love him in Tampa Bay. I mean, this could be not a super franchise quarterback, but this could be a guy that's there for a long time. And to echo what everyone has said, we don't know who's going to be a quarterback from the Jags. This is really a tale of two different Decembers, right? The Jags are 0-3 while the Bucs are 3-0 this month alone. If Trevor Lawrence is playing, he really hasn't looked the same since that high ankle sprain. He's been a turnover machine. He had 2 lost fumbles against the Ravens in week 15. He threw 2 or 3 picks versus the Browns. So even if Trevor Lawrence is in, we don't know what we're going to get. And then when you look at someone like CJ Beathard, again, a former Niners backup quarterback, that doesn't look very good either. I do kind of agree with the guys here on the over, but in terms of the spread, I would wait to see who's at quarterback.
Getting into the next one where you talk about the Arizona Cardinals, who just gave up 7.5 yards per play, just did not show up at all defensively, but that's against the 49ers. Now they go to Chicago. I am on the Bears. I got this -4, -115. If you shop around, you could definitely get the -4 in the 120 range at most books right now. I mean, the Bears have just been number 2 in defense the last 5 weeks, behind only the Dolphins. If you look at EPA per play, they've been on a tremendous roll, except for the late game collapse at Detroit. That defense has just been phenomenal. And I think Justin Fields still has a lot to prove. They're not going to tank away the season. They've blown 3 terrible fourth quarter games this season. The first 2 times they did it, they bounced back strong with the win. I think they take care of the Cardinals. RJ, it looks like to me that you're going to disagree.
No, I like the Bears here, especially if you can get -4. I would actually make this line like 6.5 or 6 or 6.5. I think that the Cardinals are kind of in that tank mode now. They're kind of in the give up mode. Their defense has gone from bad to worse. They're 29th in yards per play now, 31st on third down. I expect Chicago's offense to put up some points at home where they've won 3 straight. They did struggle last week. It was against an elite defense, and in Cleveland, that's about as tough a spot as you're going to have. And they almost won that game anyway. And they probably should have won that game anyway. So it's really kind of a tough, resilient team here. Much easier matchup for them. Their defense is elite versus the run. They held Cleveland to 29 rush yards, and that will take away the one Arizona strength that they have on offense, if you can call anything that Arizona does a strength. Arizona's offense, 29th in yards per pass, struggled to have success through the year against San Francisco, despite facing a pretty beat-up defense in catch-up mode. I know they scored some points in that game, but the passing offense wasn't anything to write home about there. I think they're going to struggle mightily in this spot here, and the Bears win this game running away. So I do like your play of -4. I am on that same side of -4. I think this line should be much higher, and it seems like the market disagrees, and it's going to creep down a little bit. So if you see 4s available, I think that's when you jump on the Bears.
All right, RJ, let's go. We are all going to weigh in on this next game, Cowboys and Dolphins. The Cowboys got blown out, but they lose Zach Martin. Maybe the flu was running through the team. They have a blocked punt that probably should have been a huge play where the guy misses the ball. And then Mike McCarthy decides, you know what? I don't want a turnover. I'm not going to challenge that play and just let the Bills run away with it. Katie, what do you think about this great matchup, Cowboys and Dolphins?
Well, first of all, I can't believe how long they left Dak Prescott in that game, too. I'm like, really? Week 15, we're going to play with our quarterback like this heading into the playoffs? I know it sounds crazy. I kind of lean on the Cowboys here and taking the 1.5 points with them. Yes, they have been road underdogs 3 times this year, but that was against the Niners, the Eagles, and the Bills. Lost all those games. This Miami team, yes, they're 10-4. Yes, they have an explosive offense. We should be getting Tyreek Hill back, considering I think it was a game time decision in the last game, and they really didn't need him against the Jets. But this Cowboys team has more to prove here. And if you look at this Miami offense, they really they have a lot of penalties, 668 yards of penalties, 83 infractions, 17th in the NFL in terms of giving up free yards. If Dallas can get them to create these penalties, I think that they have a chance here. And I do think that Dallas is a little bit more desperate in this spot. So I think they get their first away from home underdog win.
I think one of these teams is a fraud. I just don't know which one it is. They're great at beating up on bad teams. RJ, what do you think?
Yeah, what's interesting is you look at the game last week, Cowboys at Bills. This was about where the line was for much of the week, -1.5. Are the Dolphins better than the Bills? Are they the same as the Bills? I think most people would put the Bills ahead at this point. One of the best teams in the league, the way they've looked the last few weeks. So that tells you that the value is probably on the Cowboys side here. This line should probably be closer to pick 'em. Not much to take away from Miami's offense in that Jets win. Field position was great all game. Did not have to do much in that game. Miami's defense is 4th in yards per play, but they've played a pretty easy schedule. You see week in and week out, they've been 10-point favorites in a lot of these games, especially lately. This is their first tough test since week 9. Big injuries to both offensive lines. It sounds like Zach Martin's going to be okay. Not sure the state of the Miami offensive line. That's really what it could come down to with this Cowboys pass rush. But Tua can neutralize that some. You see he's getting the ball out quickly. That's obviously the key to their offense. And Dallas really needs Jonathan Hankins back to solidify the run defense because this Miami rush offense can run all over them if he's not in the game. So I think Dallas is going to be focused after that embarrassing loss to Buffalo, while Miami might not be as good as the recent run suggests, which I think you were hinting at. So if you're going to play this spread, I kind of look to the Cowboys. I think it's a great teaser line before it goes down if you want to tease them, or you could just play the over and expect there to be a lot of points in this game.
2 leans for Dallas. Emory, where do you stand?
I love the Dolphins in this spot, and you look at where the Bills beat the Cowboys is up front in the run game. What and people, this is the big misconception about that Sean McVay tree. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and here with Mike McDaniel. Yeah, they may look like they operate juice bars and run yoga studios, but these dudes are tough-minded because they run the football. Miami can run the football, and they will run the football against this Cowboys defense. That's the best thing you can do against a team that wants to get after the quarterback, turn those pass rushers into run defenders. And when they're focused on the run game, now you hit them with play-action passes. Now you got those aggressive linebackers and those aggressive edge rushers. Focus on the screen game, focus on that low crosser, that mid-level crosser. This game will look a lot like San Francisco. Now, they may not get the doors blown off because pride will kick in. They learned a lesson from San Francisco, but in terms of stopping the run, Miami's run game ran against the Jets, who has a very good defense. They all they did was spread the field out slightly and made things look like a kickoff or punt return. And a lot of those fast guys, Mostert and Achane, those guys have a lot of room to pick and choose where they want to go. This is the same situation, except the Bills ran right down Main Street and right off tackle. The Dolphins can do that, but they also can do it in a lot of different ways. So I see this one being a tough matchup for the Cowboys. I like the Dolphins to win.
And we've got a great Christmas Day slate to get to. But first, let's hear from one of our sponsors.
The chance to win this trophy is an offer you can't refuse. It's the coveted Coppa Italia on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount Plus.
Now, I don't know if this was a slight, but I don't even see Patriots Broncos in my rundown, which kind of shows you that this probably shouldn't be the Sunday night game, or maybe I just missed it. RJ, take it away.
Yeah, no, it was intended to be after the ad break, so you had it right at the right spot here. Thanks to the NFL for putting this game on Sunday night, Christmas Eve, so everybody can turn off their TV, spend some time with family, and not have to watch the New England Patriots try to play football in the year 2023. So Denver got steamrolled last week by the Detroit team in a good spot at home. Now they seem to be in the same situation in a good spot at home here against a bad offense. New England's defense, 5th in yards per play, largely effective against the Chiefs despite the score. Denver's offense has topped 300 yards just once in the last 7 games. So this could be a spot where New England can hold Denver down scoring-wise. New England's offense had only 3 of 12 drives go over 10 yards. Just, 10 yards is pretty easy to do, and you can only do it 3 and 12 drives. We'll see if they get some offensive weapons back for this game. If they don't, Hunter Henry's banged up now too, amidst all the other injuries. Ramondre Stevenson just hasn't played in weeks. So maybe they'll have trouble scoring there. But if they get a few guys back, they could score on this Denver defense. 30th in yards per play, 32nd against the run, and that lines up well for what New England wants to do. Don't put the ball in the quarterback's hands. Put it in the running back's hands. Run, play defense in a low-scoring game. Power ratings say this line should be on the other side of 7. I am not rushing out to play the Broncos, laying 6.5 in such a low scoring total game. I do not trust Denver to score enough points here. If I play this game, it's going to be New England. I'm just going to wait and see if we can get a 7.
Christmas Eve, having to travel cross country. The season is over. Katie, do the Patriots even show up?
Well, I was just looking to see what the Patriots total points are, 13.5. They average under this mark this year. So if I was going to do anything, I would fade the Patriots and their team total, because this Denver Broncos defense has been better in the second half of the season. And I just don't trust anyone in New England on offense. So I would probably lean to fading their team total.
Emory, what do you say?
I'm going to lean toward a double play here, laying the points and also taking the under. I could see this one being 20-13, which helps you cash the under and also helps you cash the cover with the Broncos. I just don't see much coming from New England's offense, but defensively they're smart and they'll be in this ball game.
I forget, was it the Rams last year that went to Denver and didn't show up very late in the season, and it got away? It was like a 50-point loss.
That was the Rams scoring. That was the Baker Mayfield game.
Okay, that was the Broncos that didn't show up.
Oh, his first game, right? Yeah,
right.
That was the one where he decided he wanted to be an NFL quarterback still, and that was his comeback story. Does he get signed by the Buccaneers to be a starter without that game? I'm not sure.
No.
Good point. All right, well, let's get on to Raiders and Chiefs. Antonio Pierce now, they're 3-3. They have under him. They have extra rest. There's a lot of points to be laying in a divisional game against the Chiefs offense that just hasn't been explosive. RJ, do you agree it's take the points or stay away?
Yeah, it's tough because Kansas City was 10-point favorites in Vegas a few weeks ago. They covered that number despite getting down, I believe, 14-0 right away, and they just stormed back. So I don't know why this line is only 10. I mean, they got back on track against a tough New England defense. The Kansas City defense is up to 6th in yards per play. They're first in sack rate. I just can't see Vegas scoring a ton of points in this game. And they don't score more than 17 points against any defense that isn't the tragic Chargers defense run by Brandon Staley. So if they're not scoring points, I think Kansas City's defense can create some short fields for the Kansas City offense that has had success in a tough environment at New England. They do need to get in rhythm for the playoffs. I know they've been kind of sleeping giants because their season really doesn't ever start till January, but it's time to get in rhythm. It's time to figure out what you're going to do, because you can't just flip a switch and turn it on in January. So I think they get to some of that here. My Vegas rating might be slightly high, just compared to where I think people would be a little bit shocked. They probably would put them a little lower, and my power ratings would still make this line 10.5. So I'm not going to play it at 10, but hopefully we get single digits and people are kind of reading what you're putting out there and want to move this line down, because if it gets down to single digits, I think the Chiefs might be the play.
Jalen Hurts came out after Monday Night Football and questioned the commitment of some of his team, where I would question the decision-making of Jalen Hurts throwing to A.J. Brown in double coverage when you've got Kenneth Gainwell and other guys wide open across the middle of the field. And now the Eagles are laying double digits, over 10 points against the lowly Giants, yes. But do you think, Emory, that the Eagles will cover as we move on to game number 2 on Christmas?
You watch the Giants play against the Saints, or anybody with half decent football team,
come on.
they are not scoring points against this Eagles defense, no matter how bad this Eagles defense is. Lay these points with the Eagles. I know everyone is focusing on the offense, but I will say this: they are running plays and not running an offense. That's what I see from Philadelphia. They have to get back to running an offense, and this is the perfect get back game, get right game against a Giants team that will give you multiple chances at bat, because their offense will not have success against Philadelphia. So they'll get ample times with the football. We'll see them get right back on the winning track here.
RJ, do you think it's a nice bounce back spot for the Eagles?
Love the bounce back spot for the Eagles. They're finally done with a brutal stretch of games where they're just playing the Super Bowl contenders week in and week out. And then the Seahawks in Seattle is not an easy spot either. Great bounce back spot off of 3 straight losses. They're now getting talked about like they aren't as good as their 10-1 record. The point differential was never that good. Maybe they're a little bit fraudulent like the Vikings were last year. And of course, they don't want to hear any of that. They're going to come out looking to prove anything in this game. This could be a sleepy spot at home if they were still on their grind and just winning these games easily. They're going to be focused here. Giants, it's time for them to pack it in. Even if they went max effort in this game, I would make this line around Eagles -14. So I understand the move from 10.5. I think it should be higher. Love Emery's play of laying the points here because that positive Giants run came crashing down against the New Orleans defense. That has been beatable, particularly against the run. The Giants defense also had a solid day, but this is the first elite offense they've seen since Dallas. And in that game, Dallas scored 49 points and had 640 yards of offense. I don't think the Eagles are going to be that good, but scoring should not be an issue for the Eagles here.
This is a Super Bowl preview coming up that everyone is going to be calling it that all week, I'm sure, and it very well could be. I mean, the 49ers, clearly the best team in football right now when healthy. They are just a powerhouse. And Katie, I know that you're attacking this game, but not on the point spread.
No, I'm a big 49ers fan, so I don't know if it's just being superstitious. I almost never lay the points with the 49ers. How I always attack it, and Brinson makes fun of me on the Pick Six podcast, is the Niners team total. This week it's 26.5. Going to go ahead and take that over. It's hit in every single game this season, except for the 3-game losing streak. And then a couple weeks ago, it ended at 28 when it was at 28.5. But like you said, this is a huge test for the 49ers going up against, the best team in the AFC, the best record in the NFL, and like you said, potentially a Super Bowl preview. Both the Niners and the Ravens have the longest winning streaks right now in the league. The Niners are first in point differential compared to the Ravens, who are third. Baltimore's defense is tough, but you got to think the Ravens just played in overtime 2 weeks ago against the Rams. This is going to be their third game in 15 days, and they really haven't played a team that scores 30 points per game at home, which we know that San Francisco does. The only time this season that the Niners scored fewer than 28 points at Levi's was against the Bengals. That was the last game that they lost in that 3-game losing streak, and it was before the bye. This offense is just a unit clicking on all cylinders. I think it's a bad matchup for Baltimore, so I will go ahead and still take the Niners team total over 26.5.
And then the Ravens lose Keaton Mitchell, who was very explosive, very dynamic. RJ, do you think this spread is justified?
Yeah, definitely. I think if the 49ers at home, they're 3 points better than any team in the league, and they get 3 points for home field advantage. They have a good home field advantage. So I think you start the line at 6 against anyone. So until it gets to 6, then I think you should be looking to lay it with the 49ers. They've won 6 straight by at least 12 points, despite facing a lot of solid teams in that stretch, a lot of teams that are playoff contenders or definitely in the playoffs. 4 of those 6 games also on the road. So never mind the solid home field advantage. They're getting it done on the road too. Baltimore's defense first in yards per play, but the Rams showed they might not be as good as that rating, throwing it all over them in that matchup, and Kyron Williams running it all over them. They also gave up 5.5 yards per play to Jacksonville as well when Trevor Lawrence not looking right, like Katie said earlier. So this Baltimore defense might not be as good as its statistics, might be built a lot on who they've played. San Francisco's offense, you can't say that about. They're first in yards per play. They just kick everyone's butt up and down the field offensively. 400-plus yards in 6 of the last 7, 27-plus points in the last 6. They'll get their points here. Questionable whether Baltimore will be able to keep up. This beat-up San Francisco defense had their first bad game in a while at Arizona. If they do get healthier here, which I expect, they could bounce back, have a good game. I think 49ers probably win this game by at least 7 points. So if I'm playing it, it's going to be to lay the 49ers here. I just expect this line to keep going up because I don't know who wants to get in front of that runaway train that is the 49ers at this point.
Yeah, I wonder if San Fran held out a few people who might have played were it not Arizona to save them for this matchup. Emory, which side are you on in terms of the point spread?
Give me the Ravens plus them on the money line. I like the Ravens to win here. They have the ultimate X factor in Lamar Jackson. And you talk about the games that the Ravens tend to play up for. These are the type of games, spotlight games, Sunday night football. Everyone's watching. Everyone's talking about the 49ers. Yes, the Ravens defense can be thrown on. I said that back in the preseason. That's their biggest Achilles heel. Those corners don't turn around and look for the football. They should have some opportunities to give up big plays for San Francisco. But on the flip side, and Katie brought up that Rams game, the Ravens scored 30 plus. How many guys are running open in the rain that, guys Lamar wasn't able to connect deep on, or he was able to connect deep thanks to the receiver adjusting to the football? Expect the timing to be a little bit better. Let's say it's a clear game and no weather involved. The Ravens should be able to win this ball game, and I think they will win this ball game. They have the best kicker in the game. They have the best quarterback in the game, the X factor. I think those two things you can't simulate or practice for. That's going to be the edge to help them win this ball game, probably by 3.
Wow. Well, at this point of the week, I am definitely still struggling, and need to look into this matchup a lot more. But one thing I'm not struggling with, we have best bets, 3 best bets from every single person on this screen. And we're going to take it first. RJ White, run down your picks for us.
I've got the Commanders and Jets going under 37.5 points. I don't see how the Commanders score points in that game, and the Jets, even against a bad defense there in Washington with their quarterback issues, if it's Trevor Siemian, I don't think they're scoring a ton of points either. Packers against the Panthers under 36.5. Panthers games have been going under because that defense is playing really well, and the offense cannot reach the end zone to save its life. Finally got a big win, did not score a touchdown in that game. It was all field goals for them. I have a teaser, Steelers +8 and Browns +8.5. I think these are two solid teams that are going to be able to go and compete, maybe win their games. Really like the Steelers. I think that game should be a pick 'em. And then the Browns, I think the line is about right, but they have a quarterback in Joe Flacco that can cover on the back door if we need it.
Emory.
Mine is simple. Like, this is about matchups. Give me Sean McVay over Dennis Allen. So Rams -4. Give me Shane Steichen over Arthur Smith. So Colts +1. You can even take them on the money line. And give me Jalen Hurts over Tommy DeVito chips. And I just think that they're going to blow these guys out. So those are my 3 best bets this weekend.
Well, they certainly blew them out last year. Katie, what do you got?
I'm going to lay the 4 with the Rams here. I mean, Stafford has just been looking pretty amazing. This offense is clicking on all cylinders. Kyron Williams is going to run all over the Saints. Pretty weak rush defense. And Cooper Kupp seems to look like him old self again. I'm taking the 49ers team total over 26.5. They average about 30 points per game at home this season. I'm also going to lay the 2 points with the Bengals. This Steelers offense has just been inept. And even if it is Mason Rudolph, I don't see them keeping this one close.
I'm totally with you on the Rams laying the points against the Saints team, that dominated the Panthers and the Saints, and now they're facing a very elite offense. I also love the Bills team total over 26.5 against the Chargers defense, despite the coaching change. And then, like I am every single week, I will play the Chicago Bears against the spread. They've been good to me for about 5 weeks now. So take the Bears, lay the points against Arizona, just playing out the string. I want to thank everyone for joining us on the Mega Preview. Good luck with all your bets. We'll see you right here on this channel, 10 a.m. tomorrow for the Early Edge.